I'm Benjamin Hall, and I'm searching for heroes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for joining me today. And we're actually doing something different in the podcast today, something we haven't done before. And that is that I am reading and answering questions that you guys have reached out and given me. Thank you, first of all, for all the questions that came in. Such a wide variety of questions. And I picked just a few that I want to talk about today. Some of them are about personal, about me, and others are about how I feel about perhaps geopolitics and what's going on in the world at the moment. So I'm going to get straight to it if I can, and start off with the first one, which is one that I've had quite often. Quite a few people have been asking me this question. They're always checking in to see how I'm doing. And it's Julie who has written, "Many of us have been praying for you and your family. How many surgeries are still in your future?" And the reason I'm happy to answer this is because, in fact, the last major surgery that I was due to have happened about 2 months ago. That was the last one that I knew was going to happen. I think we're over 40 surgeries now. But that was the last one. They had to go into what's left of my left foot, my heel that's there, cut down a few bones and try and fix something that was a bit of a problem. That happened. I was off my legs for a couple of weeks. And I feel now that I'm at this a totally new part of my whole recovery. And to make that a slightly broader answer, I would say that for a couple of years, when I had surgery after surgery, for 7 months when I was in the hospital and in a really bad place, you are in one mindset. You have to be in this position where you're going to have something every single day. Every day is going to be tricky. You're not sure how you're going to get through it, but you know you will. And you're going to do it with your smile on your face and make sure you get through it. But you are in a special place. We talk on this podcast all about resilience. Well, that is where you have to channel into that resilience every single day. And I feel like you become a different person. When you are back up against the wall, when things are really bad, you find a way to get through it, but you have to cut off everything else. And that's where you focus. You just get one step in front of the next, one foot in front of the next. And you have to set yourself goals and you have to get there. But I feel that after this last surgery, and maybe over the last sort of 6 months or so, I've moved away from that. And I think that's the most important part of recovery. When you got to be focused, when you need to be there, when you got to be resilient, you do it every step. But you can't be like that forever. You go totally, haywire if that's your only thought. And just being asked this question and thinking about it today, I realized that, that last surgery that I had felt like a real moment for me where I could start really branching out a bit and realizing that I was in the next stage right now. Now, there are a few things to come, definitely. I mean, I have a whole lot of stitches that are coming out of my eye all the time. I've got a lot of lasers coming up to try and fix all the burns. But I don't seem to mind those. You have to be you learn how to become acceptant to these sort of things. So I feel like I'm in just a great place right now. That is thanks, obviously, to all the doctors and everyone who's helped me and to my family, but it's thanks to you guys as well. Always reaching out, always asking how I'm doing, and always willing me on as well. So I guess, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much. And to anyone else who is going through and having, a whole lot of, whether it's personal, medical problems, know when the time is when you've got to be laser focused on getting through them. And just focus on that and put all your energy into that. But know when to back off. Don't be there all the time. Know when to somehow learn how to turn that on and off. And I think that's important. And I suppose from a personal level, now that I'm sort of up and I'm doing well and everything is, the future looks pretty good, it's my turn to give on. It's not about me who has surgeries or has injuries. It's about the other people who have them and seeing if perhaps I can talk to them, help them. And I'm very lucky that I've been able to do that in quite a few places. But, I'm sitting in my office at the moment, and everywhere I see around me, all I can see are prosthetic legs and first aid kits and wheelchairs and crutches and, old feet and things like this. So I guess it's also part of my life now. Maybe when you've gone through something like this, it kind of just stops bothering you after a while and you have to embrace it. So I suppose that's another lesson I would say. If it's going to be with you forever, if things are always going to hurt, And believe me, they do. Every day, walking hurts. But then you stop seeing them as big problems to overcome. They're just part of life. And if you let them bother you, well, then you're going to have a pretty difficult time ahead of it. So if there's something that you can't change, if there's the pain that won't go away, I'd say, A, avoid the pain meds. But secondly, learn how to get through it. Grit your teeth when you got to do it. And I know we can all get through more than we think we're able to. So thanks for asking that question. I really appreciate it. And we're going to move on to the next one. And that is, it's a very interesting one. It's from Karen. She asks, what are your thoughts on forgiveness? And this is a really interesting one because I used to think an awful lot about who fired the shells, who fired at our car in Ukraine, who was the man who pulled the trigger, what should happen to him. If he was right in front of me, what would I say? What would I do? And it's not just my injuries. Those shells, they killed Pierre, they killed Sasha. That's never coming back. That's taken life, innocent civilian life. We were in a civilian car. And you think of the thousands of Ukrainian civilians who have been killed as well. That's as low, it's as bad as you can get. And I don't think there's ever forgiveness for people who do that. But I'm in a very lucky place in that I've never felt hatred. I've never felt anger. I've never felt sort of resentment. I always thought that the focus for me had to be on getting better, making sure that I can prevent that happening, that I can help others, that I focus on my story. And I do think when it comes to resilience and when it comes to getting through things, if your whole thought is about, let's get the guy who did this, let's make that our driving force, and I won't sleep or rest till I find them, I think that probably makes recovery an awful lot worse. So I think that the forgiveness for the people who fired the Russian soldiers, well, I hope they are found. I hope they are held up and face whatever judgment comes to them. And I'm not just talking in this life. It may not happen in this life, but it will happen in the next. And that's on their shoulders. And I've participated in the war crimes investigations in Ireland, in France, in Ukraine, Britain. And I feel two ways about war crimes investigations. I believe in the idea totally, but I mean, so many times out of Brussels and Belgium, and not a lot happens. Millions and millions of dollars, and I don't think Putin is that afraid or worried about them at all. But I will keep on with them. So forgiveness is a really interesting one. I spoke to Diane Foley. She was the mother of Jim Foley. He was taken by ISIS over 10 years ago, and he was held. And she sat down. She was a guest on the podcast. She sat down with one of the ISIS guys who held her son, because she wanted to learn about forgiveness. He was captured and he was sent to America, and he is now serving life. But she wrote an incredible book about it, where she wanted to look him in the eyes and see how she felt about forgiveness. Can you look at the person in the eyes who has taken the life of your son, and can there ever be forgiveness? And I think she said that she would never forgive him, but that she was trying to understand what drove him, why he did it. So it's a really fascinating question, my thoughts on forgiveness. Look, of course, it varies on what we're forgiving. Of course, if we are forgiving the attack in Ukraine, well, no, that will forever be with me. And I don't think people who carry out, acts of war like that, criminal acts of war, can ever be forgiven. But things happen around, in our day-to-day lives, where you might fall out with someone, or something might not be going well, or even if someone doesn't, does something incorrectly at work or job, well, maybe some of those things can be forgiven, and many of them are. And I tend to forgive most things like that, almost everything like that. I just give it a bit of time, let it settle. But just know that you won't trust that person in the same way ever again. And that loss is their loss, not my loss. That's their loss. So once you've burnt that bridge, you can be forgiven, but you'll never be right back to where you started. And I think sometimes before you can forgive, you've got to put some space between you and the other person. Give it a bit of time, and then go back and try again. So I think forgiveness is an absolutely fascinating one. I hadn't thought about it all that much. But I think if there's anyone who I was back to Ukraine and what happened to me, more than the people who pull the trigger, it's the people at the top, the Putin, Gerasimov, Shoigu. These are the head of the Russian military. They're the guys who have sent their whole army into an innocent country and are killing thousands of people. Now, they need to be, whatever has to happen to them. If you're going to stop the bad that's going on, they've got to be stopped as well. So thank you for asking that. And guys, I'd love you to reach out to me as well and talk about forgiveness as well. Are you able to forgive people? Does it depend on what they've done as to whether you're not able to forgive them or not? But be open to it, I don't know if we can turn the other cheek, but don't let it hold you back, I think is my one main point here. Don't let it hold you back that you're hate or anger towards someone who's done something for you. If you can't fix it, just move away from it. If you can fix it, well, go for it. More of our conversation right after this. I was also asked about, this is interesting. This is again a more personal question. I went to Paris last weekend. I went to the Olympics. I was very lucky. I got tickets to the athletics finals, and we watched the 1,500 meters, the 5,000 meters, the high jump, the women's javelin, the 4x400 relay. And a couple of people saw the photo. They wanted to reach out and ask what that was like. And I will say it meant an awful lot more than I thought it would. I've been to plenty of sports events and stadiums in the past, and you always get the rivalry. You get, two sides. And I love that, there's competition. But there was something really special about the Olympic spirit. There really was. There was a stadium I was in full of people of all ages from all different countries, with everyone who wanted their own country to win, but rallied each other's country on. And I did feel that it was an absolutely amazing event to be at. So just the atmosphere of being there was amazing. I enjoyed that. But more importantly than that was just watching some of these athletes. I'll come in a bit to how they were at the sport and how amazing they were running. But more importantly than that, I just kept thinking about what they had done to get to the Olympics. The hard work, the commitment, 4 years with one goal in sight to get there and to win your medals. And every minute of every day, training, thinking how you're going to do it, improving where you're not doing so well, trying to figure out what isn't going well so you can change it. I think that we can all, every one of us, learn from these athletes. That's how we should be looking at life. If something isn't going perfectly, let's find out how to make it better. If we're finding something difficult, let's find a way to improve it. And life, recovery, again, the first question as well, how am I doing? How it's about recovery. It's about goals. Athletes had goals. I found that I set myself goals. It's another great life lesson. If you can set goals the way these athletes set goals, you can go out and achieve almost anything. And even though some of the athletics I were watching were independent sports, there's one runner, he's going to get the medal. You could just see what teamwork was behind it. And no matter what we do, almost anything, which you might think is just you doing it or it's just you solo, that's never true. There are always a great team behind you. And if there isn't, there should be. People you can reach out to, talk to, because that makes people better. That makes you better. And so again, I was sitting there and I was watching these people, watching as they prepared, watching as they got ready to go at the beginning of a race, that laser focus, one goal in mind, right there at the end of the track, compared to the total either joy at the end of it, or perhaps the sadness that they didn't get the medal they wanted. And what a great life lesson there as well. Even if you win, that doesn't mean that you've achieved everything. It means you've achieved that goal. And I know athletes say straight away, what's the next goal? It's why it's so hard for some people after the Olympics, where they train for 4 years, to just suddenly have nothing to do. The goal they had disappears and they have to quickly get on to find another goal. In the same way, perhaps, that people, and I've spoken to a number on this podcast, when you have served in the military for so many years and suddenly you stop, there's this moment where you have to figure out what's next. Just telling yourself that you've done well and you've achieved great things is never enough to give you the strength to keep going on. So the people who win, it's amazing. They've achieved it, but that only lasts a short time. You've got to take that and you've got to make something of it. For those people who lose, well, that is a difficult place too. And you've got to, I don't know how long you sit there and you accept how hard it was, but it shouldn't be long at all. It should just be a very short moment till you pick yourself up, you stand up and you say, all right, I didn't win this one. What's next? What's next? And I think that's, I left the Olympics and I had all of these things going through my mind. And as I said at the beginning of the question, watching these athletes run and compete is absolutely amazing. And I know that we see them on TV, we watch them run. But when I saw them in person, it was even more impressive than I realized. They are absolute, physical machines. They seem so perfect. And some of those longer distance runs, the 5,000 meter, they're sprinting faster than I could ever have sprinted, for 100 meters. So they really are amazing. And again, we should all aim to be in shape, better shape. Made me think that actually we better watch out. You look around and society doesn't seem to be in such good shape as it used to be. So we should really encourage that. And my children, they're 8, 7, and 4 at the moment. About to have a couple of birthdays coming up. But they came home every day from school and they wanted to watch the Olympics. And I thought, isn't this the best thing ever? They're not coming home and saying, let's go and play this game or do that. They wanted to watch the Olympics. They didn't want to watch cartoons or anything, which I might add, we don't let them do too often. But it was so great to see them inspired, see them getting behind the countries, see them being fascinated by Simone Biles as well. She is a hero in our household. So I think the Olympics, it adds to the young generation too. It got them so excited in sport in a way they haven't been yet. And so that was another great moment for me, that I know that it's something that it will pass from generation to generation, that we will always be fascinated by the Olympics and what happens in them. One other thing I did think, I'm English and I'm American. I've always felt both. I grew up between the two. My dad's American and I think I was saved by Americans. I got better in America. I've been with the US military a lot. And of course I worked for Fox, and it was sitting at the Olympics, watching races in which there was both an English athlete and an American athlete, that for the first time in my life, I realized that if I had to pick, there's no doubt that I picked the American. And I had never thought about it before, but I've just become, after what I saw, the people who came, the former military guys, the intelligence, US intelligence, who came to save an American, who was stuck in Ukraine injured. What we do as a country to help one another, the freedom in America, the willingness to work hard, to work as a community, to be teamwork, the creativeness, there is nowhere like it in the world. There isn't. And I sat in those races, and there was one country I wanted to win every single time, and it was America, time and time again. So that was another big moment for me. And you're funny, you hear my children also now, because they've heard me screaming away and watching the races, are also have America at the top as well. So I don't think when I was younger, the Olympics meant all so much to me. I thought they were sporting events, but gosh, going there, thinking about it, comparing it, thinking about recovery, resilience, fighting hard, getting through life, setting yourself goals, supporting your country, working as a team, all these things really hit home this time. So I would say to anyone in 4 years from now, when it comes to LA, assuming they can clean up their streets, go and see it. Go take your family, go cheer on the red, white, and the blue. It's worth every second of it. We'll be back in a moment with Searching for Heroes. So I went quite long on the Olympics chat, so I'm going to finish up just with I think I've been saying it for a while, but the one question has coming to me is about the podcast. I've been doing the podcast since I think November, and I've just been asked what I learned from it. What will I continue to learn? How has it changed or strengthened my view of resilience? And it's changed it in a massive way. All the things I was just saying about the Olympics, understanding, setting goals and, working hard and working with others. All those things I learned both during my own recovery, but I've learned them through the podcast just as much. And more than anything, I realized that quite a few of the people I speak to realize that, many didn't think that they had resilience until something happened to them where they needed it. And do you know how many times I've heard people saying, but in that moment where I know I needed it, I stepped up and I did it. It was inside me. I wasn't sure if it was there, but it is. And I just think that gives me an awful lot of pride. And I hope it gives a lot of pride and strength to all of you guys who listen, because it is in all of you. I keep learning this. And resilience doesn't just have to be someone who has a lifetime full of resilience. Resilience can be just as important in little moments. When you've got to do that one thing right there and then, that little moment's of resilience. In the same way that a lifetime of, dealing with hardship, that's resilience too. And so more than anything, I think resilience is a much wider thing than I ever gave it credit for. It is in absolutely everybody. And I do think that it's both nature and nurture. I think you can get resilience and you can lose resilience, but that you can always work to get it back. So I've just got to say that the podcast itself has been an absolute joy for me. And I still think we're on a journey and a learning journey about it. I'm still trying to figure out the best way to do the podcast. So any of you listening who listen often, please let me know if there's something, if there are particular questions you'd like me to ask, if you're more fascinated in a certain way in which I interview people. Because I suppose it's about letting them tell their stories. And by letting them tell their stories, perhaps we can learn more ourselves. So I just want to say it's been a great pleasure chatting to you all today. I think I've really enjoyed this. And in fact, I thought I had an idea of which direction I was going to go and what I was going to say, but I ended up going completely off what I had thought about. And maybe that's what's best about podcasts, is you're just never certain where you're going to end up. So thank you everyone for listening today. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate all your support. And I'll finish up just by saying that each one of you is like one of those athletes. You can set yourself goals and you can get there. And it doesn't matter if you are knocked down, you can pick yourself back up again. We all can. Go and have a great day, everyone. And thanks for listening. Listen ad-free with a Fox News Podcasts Plus subscription on Apple Podcasts. And Amazon Prime members can listen to this show ad-free on the Amazon Music app.